This is now Chapter 3 of John Paul Jackson, 7 Days Behind the Veil. Day 3. Immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he who sat there was like a jasper and a sardis stone in appearance. And there was a rainbow around the throne, in appearance like an emerald. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white robes, and they had crowns of gold on their heads. And from the throne proceeded lightnings, thunders, and voices. 7 lamps of fire were burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Revelation 4:2-5. Creation declares His glory. All throughout Scripture, we find God moving and revealing Himself. He wants us to be known by us, and not just known by, but touched. He wants us to dare to put out hand into the flame of His presence. Everything He created with a purpose that is better and more wonderful than what is humanly imaginable. Even if we spent years and years studying Him and all the possibilities. Every single created particle, no matter how small, has purpose. It has specific reasons why it exists. Profound destiny. There are no accidents in creation. God didn't sit up in heaven and think, well, I'm going to create this 6-winged being. I have no clue what I'm going to use it for, but I'm going to call it a seraphim. And then, just to confuse the matter, I'm going to create a 4-winged creature and call that matter cherubim. And just to confuse things even more, I'm going to make angels and hosts and not tell anyone much about the difference between the two. Even though I know there's a big difference. In heaven, as in all of creation, everything has a purpose and everything reveals God. The story is masterfully written in each detail, even the ones that seem insignificant, plays a part in leading the reader to the climax. God's fingerprints are on every element, His signature on every forehead. There are no just becauses with God, but clearly that doesn't mean we can explain everything. For instance, when the Apostle John writes that lightnings, thunderings, and voices come from the throne, every preconceived idea we may have about heaven being silent is destroyed thunderously. Voices come from the throne? How can there be voices when there's only one who sits there? So many things are still a mystery, just as God intends them to be. The essence of mystery. Mystery is one of the greatest lures of romance and intimacy. Its magnetism draws us, woos us, even propels us to find what we have yet to experience, to find what our heart knows is there. We can sense it. Our logic argues against it, but the mystery becomes so much our desire that in the end we pursue it with everything we have, unmindful of the cost. We fall deeply, madly in love. Heaven and our view of God. Standing in the throne room is like standing in the middle of an atom. The throne is the nucleus, and protons, electrons, and other subatomic particles are whizzing past all the time. There are angels and other heavenly beings, many of which are completely beyond our current understanding. It would mentally pull us apart if we tried to comprehend them. We tend to think of heaven as a being graveyard, silent, with the angels tiptoeing across golden floors and crystal seas, whispering, "Shh, don't disturb God." But this is not the case at all. Heaven is a noisy place. One of the saddest verses in Scripture is Revelation 8:1. When he opened the seventh seal, there was a silence in heaven for about half an hour. Why? Because it means that God was not doing his holy acts. He had turned man over to his own devices. How we view heaven greatly affects how we view God. If we think it's a dull and boring place, what does that say about God? If we think this is a life on earth would be more exciting than spending an eternity up there, then what do you suppose that does to our level of intimacy with the God who wants us to be with him every moment of every day? It is any wonder that so few experience the deeper levels of intimacy. However, if we come to the place where we realize that heaven is so much more than the church has traditionally thought, it will change our view of the one who lives there. He is so much more than we have traditionally thought. The whole earth declares his glory. The arrangement of the throne room tells us something about God. The angels tell us something about God, how they are shaped, how they are dressed, everything they do, the motions they make. Everything tells us something about God. Read his word with that in mind. Go to the grocery store with that in mind. You will be surprised at what he shows you about himself in the middle of the soup aisle. We are live our life with understanding that God is writing a story and every detail plays a significant part. This constant looking is partially what Jesus meant when he said, "If you seek, you will find." Matthew 7:7. If we look for him, he will be found. And so we discover in the seeking that what we focus on, we make room for. Salah moments. Each of us is the focal point of his heart. If our worship doesn't involve the heart, it doesn't involve anything. What we focus on, we make room for. Where is our focus? Have we felt him lately? God's fingerprints are on every element. Everything in some way or form declares his glory. Your view of heaven reveals your view of God. Your view of God reveals how much you will allow him to do for you. Your view of God reveals the limits you place on his power.